New beginning in Osaka was full of promise. A big crowd and a loaded lineup bode well. What we got was a show full of exciting matches, angles, returns, and title changes. It was a new beginning indeed for New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're going to break it down match by match and talk about all the fallout. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we had plenty of all of those today. As I mentioned, I'm Steven Conway. He's Jeremy Finestone. It was National Foundation Day in Japan, and it was a day off for everybody, national holiday. New Japan ended up running a show in the afternoon and in Osaka, and it turned out to be quite the day. A lot going on there, Jeremy. We're going to go over it match by match, like I mentioned. But overall impressions, I actually stayed up late to watch this one live. It came on at the pre-show match was at 11:30 my time, and then midnight for the main card. So I just decided I was going to stay up as best I could. I figured if I fell asleep, I could pick the rest up in the morning. But this show held my attention all the way through the night. And I'm glad I did. It was an exhilarating evening. And, of course, with a moment that was very, very special at the end, I just thought it was well worth my time.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that it was Foundation Day in Japan, because it sure seemed like New Japan set the foundation for 2025 with this show.
Very much.
They set the pace for. I don't know, man. That might be the show to beat so far this year, and it's that was a really good show. I don't think anything missed. You know, top to bottom. I just
there was one match that was pretty rough.
It all landed with the impact that it needed. I think I know what match you're talking about, but we'll get there eventually. No, the show was great. I did not stay up and watch it live. I got up at 6 a.m. my time. And you reached out to me and it was like, oh, the show. And I was like, I'm just getting through it right now.
I know not to spoil anything. I knew not to spoil anything.
And I remained unspoiled for the entirety of it. But there were things like by the main event, I'm like, yeah, this motherfucker's winning. you know?
So I'm wearing my Hanshin Tigers jersey. I got this when I was in Japan there in January. And, of course, Hanshin Tigers is the Osaka baseball team. So I have an Osaka theme going today. And wanted to mention this Founders Day because at first I thought, why in the world would you do this show on Tuesday? But it turns out National Foundation Day. National Foundation Day is a day to commemorate the founding of the country, regardless of the actual day it was founded. And the reason they mentioned that is they had to pick a day, Jeremy, because a country as ancient as Japan, it's difficult to say, when did Japan start? Was it this emperor? Was it with this? Was it with the current style of government? Was it with the current constitution? And so they just wanted to have a day where we're just celebrating the founding of the country. And February 11th is a day of historical significance for a couple of different reasons. It was selected, which means, in case you're wondering why in the world 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon would they put this major show, yet it sells out. Well, that's why, because it was a national holiday and everybody was off work. And they drew over 5,000, what was it? I have the number here. Now, of course, they bumped these up a little bit.
Like there were no seats to be left.
5,502 was listed as the attendance. So it's probably a little bit under that, but not a whole lot.
They Edion Arena, right?
Edion Arena, yeah. And Brad is here. Glad to see you, Brad. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, Edion Arena. This is a traditional building it's where Grand Sumo happens in March. The Grand Sumo tournament will be in that building. It's had a couple of names over the years, depending on who is sponsoring it. It used to be the Bodymaker Coliseum. Now it's Edion currently. So it's an older building, but it's been around. And the big one in Osaka is Osaka Joe Hall. But this is one that's been tradition for a while.
About the show, right? Like that's the last time they're going to be in the Edion Arena for a while.
Are they redoing the arena or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Was they're going to shut down for 2 years, and that was the last show that New Japan will be doing in that arena for a significant period of time. So that was mentioned, I think, in the kickoff or something. But no, I noticed that and I was like, wow, like they pack this place to the gills and now they can't run here again.
Well, and I was thinking this, and we're going to talk about this at the end, and what this show did for New Japan. If you put on a show that sells out and it's exciting, it has one of the best moments that we've had in a long, long time in New Japan. It has turns, it has returns, surprises. That building might be too small next year. You might be wanting to go back to Osaka Joe.
Yeah, Osaka Joe Hall is the goal, isn't it? Like you run Osaka Joe Hall right after you do the Tokyo Dome, and then you run it again in June, and you got 2 nights at Tokyo Dome, and you got 2 nights at Osaka Joe Hall in the year. Feels like New Japan might be back if you be able to pull that one off.
We've been cautiously optimistic for a while here, Jeremy, haven't we? Since the company got its focus back a little bit toward the second half of 2024. I feel like we are really on a good pace here. There were some really interesting developments in this one, and we're getting some people back. The roster's getting healthier. Hey.
It is such a cliche, but the phrase, the feeling is back, kind of like applies right now, because you saw an honest change in like where the War Dogs are in the landscape of this show. And that's a big deal. That's like a Bullet Club.
Seismic shift
there. We did find out that, in fact, Evil is not gone. Like, we all thought he was not gone.
We knew that.
We had returns like Yuya Uemura that happened on this show. We had title changes. We had shifts in the landscape. You had commentary taking dibs at Rocky Romero for not being on the road 2 shows, but nobody's getting suspended for that.
Really? See, I was listening to Japanese commentary. I mentioned this before, that I've been doing that more as I've been practicing my own Japanese, and I just think it helps me to hear it. And Desperado and Toru Yano were on the call. Right. With Milano and Murata at that one. And so I didn't hear what was going on until I switched over a little bit after the show was over. I backed up and went over some of the things on English commentary. And what surprised me, and I'm going to ask you this now, Clark Connors was the guest once the show started. Mm-hmm. And was he baby facing from the very beginning all the way through?
No, he was a fantastic color guy.
Yeah.
But he shifted for each match. Like he played the role that the match needed, and he was able to call it with Walker. I think the most notable shift was he was very passionate, and he was excellent during the Gabe Kidd versus Yota Tsuji match.
Okay.
Right? Like he stayed within character. He was 1000% on Gabe Kidd's side.
Of course.
But when that match was over and they had everything go on, he got his clock cleaned a little bit, and then he came back and did commentary for the final match. He said, my jaw hurts, but I understand how important this match is. And he was leaning very heavily into, okay, this is really cool. Like he played for the moment, not his character in that last match, and it was better for it.
And we mentioned War Heroes here, War Hero 99. Glad you're here. And Brad mentioned something too that is, I think, is indicative of the feeling among the fans right there. And again, Osaka is a more boisterous crowd than you usually get. Now, Osaka as a whole is a more boisterous, kind of a gregarious city. But Brad mentioned, I saw someone on Twitter ask this, and it's an interesting question. When the fans chanted Shin Nihon, which is New Japan in Japanese, during the kid Tsuji match, I think it was actually the kid. Well, I don't think it was Moloney.
No, I thought he. Sorry, I was thinking of the Drilla match.
The chant broke out during. The chant broke out at the end of Yota Tsuji and Gabe Kidd there, I think. Okay. But was that the first time a chant like that has happened? I don't remember fans in Japan chanting Shin Nihon at all. I don't remember. And it wasn't a huge chant. It was a few people, but it just shows that there's a little bit more enthusiasm than what we've seen over the last couple of years. Certainly since the pandemic, where things have been very quiet. And the pop at the end, and we're going to just get it out of the way right away. We have a new World Heavyweight Champion. Hirooki Goto finally did it. And at the end, and we're going to talk about how this was shot, because they absolutely deserve a night out and a nice bonus for the way they framed the winning moment. But when that happened, I noticed this. I talked about this after being at Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty, that almost nothing gets the fans out off their butts anymore. Like there is a thing where people just stay in their seats now, which didn't used to be a thing. If you watch clips from 10 years ago, which I have been lately going back, the crowds are much more like on their feet and jumping up and down. Sometimes, they're still, it's still Japan. They're not wild, but this got people out of their seats. People jumped up with their arms in the air when Goto won this thing. It's a very different atmosphere than what we have seen post-pandemic.
From the moment the last match ended and the graphic went up for Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. And don't get me wrong, that crowd was hot for Shingo or for Tsuji and Gabe Kidd. This was seismic. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is something right here. And I felt like when Zack Sabre Jr. came out, I knew Goto was winning. I'm like, there was something about the way he just came out and he just kind of like, he took it in, but he was kind of sad. Like there was something about it where with the new entrance music and everything, I just saw it. And it's just something that you see after a while. Like you watch wrestling for a while and there's just little tells. And these guys aren't always perfect at maintaining everything, but it's just the little poker face stuff, and he came out and like, with the Goto Revolution icon, the shirt that they dropped on the token shop, like an hour before the show started, I'm like, this guy, he's winning. There's just like, they were telling you in every way that this guy was winning ahead of time. And I don't know how the New Japan audience would have felt had he lost. I think there was no way with the groundswell and everything that they could have held this off for another show. Like it was close, but not close enough kind of thing. This was magic in a bottle that they had tonight. This crowd wanted to see a new beginning. And from top to bottom, main event included, they laid the groundwork for 2025. And I was just like, let's have Goto at the front of it, at least at the beginning.
All right. So do you want to handle this main event backwards, or do you want to start with the beginning of the card and work our way toward the main event? You want to do it in the order we saw it, or do you want to go reverse? I'm up to either.
I feel like we should build up to the main event because I feel like the pace of the show kind of helped the show.
Well, let's do that. So our very first match was a kickoff match. It did feature a young lion who did not end up playing into the finish, which was interesting. It was Francesco Akira and Jeff Cobb facing El Desperado and Katsuya Murashima. And in the end, it was Akira beating Desperado. He pinned Desperado again there, even with a young lion in the match. It was the champ taking the fall. Francesco Akira, of course, is going to be challenging Desperado at the anniversary show. They decided to give him a surprise victory over the champion here. Pretty decent match.
Great finishing sequence.
It was, yeah, and it sets up the anniversary show nicely. So Desperado really doing his part to build up his challenger. For,
so Desperado got cocky. He wanted to pile drive or suplex Jeff Cobb, and in the middle of trying to do so, Akira leaps over Desperado and Cobb, monkey flips, and gets the roll up pin. And I just thought, well, if you want to get me excited for a match, I'll do it.
It was a heck of a sunset flip, yeah. And he had to clear a big man there to do it, so it worked out.
Akira's motivated. He is very motivated right now.
Yeah, and he knows that this is a big deal for him, and he doesn't have to win that match to get over. He can just have a great match, and then everyone's going to be reminded that this guy plays on that level. So doing his part.
How lucky is Akira? Originally, it was probably going to be him and Doki, which was also probably going to be awesome. But he instead is forced to have a match with Desperado for the title instead of Doki.
Winner either way, aren't you? Winner either way. All right, so the first main show match was Hiroshi Tanahashi and Togi Makabe, and I think that this is the only match on the card that really, really struggled. They did what they could do considering their ages and limitations, but Again, these guys are getting up there, and the bodies are betraying them a little bit. Makabe missed a King Kong knee. Tanahashi missed a high fly flow. So they were working hard. They were definitely working hard. There were some good moments there. Psychologically, these guys know how to handle things. But there were a lot of stumbles as well. There were just some moves where they would try to do it. They just athletically can't do anymore. And Tanahashi hit an O'Connor. Well, I say he hit an O'Connor roll to win.
He attempted.
That O'Connor roll was a struggle for both of them, both Tanahashi and for Makabe to take it. Neither one really quite agile enough for an O'Connor roll these days, and it was kind of a bumble. But in the end, Tanahashi ended up getting the win. They shook hands afterwards. These two are buddies, of course, from GBH and Hantai being allies, and that was the story there. Of course, flashback to these two. Tanahashi's very first match was against Shinya Makabe, Togi Makabe, in Korakuen Hall way back when. And so it was a little wink and a nod to that. And Tanahashi got the victory, of course. But yeah, a bit of a struggle.
I thought it was fine. Every match that we came into, for me personally, met my expectations. Like, I knew what I was going to get going into it. And I don't want to say it was like grading on a curve, but because of what I thought it was going to be versus what it ended up being, I was totally fine with it. Like, I knew that these were two old, like, grandpas in the ring, and by the time we got to the Okada roll, like, mess up, and then they ran it back and did an Okada roll for the finish, the audience was even like, yeah, okay, we get it. Like, we're here for the final run. Like, we know what this is going to be. We love it anyway. We don't care. And I'm watching it, and I'm much like, they did the opening, right? They ran down the whole card, but they started with match 2 on the VTR. And so I was like, for a second there, I was like, I hope that they didn't pull this match because somebody's old and hurt. And no, they waited until the last main event match, and then they pulled the card because they had an extended VTR because it's Tanahashi's final road. Yeah. And so, like, you're watching this, and we're going to get this all year round. This is going to be an evergreen thing. If you are not on the Tanahashi train, if you don't have a ticket for this ride, I'm sorry. It's going to be unpleasant for the next year because this is what it is going to be. We are going to have matches up and down the card with Tanahashi doing the best he can, watching the tears in his eyes as he wrestles these guys for the last time. And you can either just love it or you can give it shit when it sucks, and either is fine. But either way, this is not going away.
Well, Colin thought Tana should finish up. This was sad to watch. Brad said it was a beautiful mess, though. So I guess
that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not getting 5-star classics, guys. We might not even get 2.5-star classics. But in a lot of ways, these matches aren't for us. They are for the traditional home, like, Japanese audiences who are going to see this guy for the last time.
I'm also curious to see, well, I was curious to see Tanahashi's reaction to leaving Edion Arena. What you're saying is this is his last match in Edion Arena, which is one of the iconic New Japan venues. Of course, most of them are in Tokyo, Korakuen. The Dome has its own history, and Sumo Hall, of course, I would say is the big one. But in Osaka, there's more of a history of big events in Edion than any other building. And Osaka is the second largest city in Japan. It's an important building. And Tanahashi has had a lot of big matches in Edion Arena. So he was a little emotional leaving right there, knowing that was his last match in Edion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's gonna be emotional at every last place.
Yeah, he will.
He'll be emotional in Chicago when he's I'm just really emotional.
You're right. It's going to be a trail of tears, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So the next one, Jeremy, how about this one? Drilla Moloney and Shingo Takagi. First of all, pretty good match. And Moloney hit a nasty spine buster early in the match that Shingo sold for the rest of the match. It looks so good. I hope he didn't actually hit the back of his head like it looked like he did, because that looked nasty. But Shingo sold it beautifully the rest of the way. This one only went about 10 minutes and 40 seconds. They exchanged Made in Japans. I got to say, Drilla Moloney does a hell of a Made in Japan. And each one got a 2 count, though. Pumping Bomber landed for Shingo. When he went for Last of the Dragon, Drilla Moloney managed to counter it into a Drilla Killer, and they went with the upset victory. Drilla Moloney defeats Shingo Takagi. this was a big step forward for Drilla Moloney's character.
Absolutely.
And a big jump up the card a little bit for him, or at least a signal that that's where he's headed. Good for him. He turned in a terrific performance. Of course, Shingo's one of the best in the world. But Moloney was good here. He got the upset victory, and it kind of set a tone that important things were happening for War Dogs, and it was going to be a very, very big night for the War Dogs, or an important night for the War Dogs.
I think it was an important night for New Japan. They were going to tell you, like, hey, we're going to do some stuff tonight. Like, sit back and just get ready for it.
And Venkin mentions this. Hey, Venkin, I'm glad you're here too. He said that Drilla killer was like, what? Yeah. And when he hit it, I was just like, oh my God, they're going to beat Shingo right here. And as Brad says, Drilla's a made man now, and he certainly has moved up the card on that.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how that goes with the New Japan Cup. All of a sudden, you got to take him a lot more seriously than we did before this match.
Yeah, no, you're going to have to start figuring out who and what and where. They did, in fact, say they're closing down Edion Arena for renovations. They did mention that on the show.
That's a
they were going to return in a year, but the arena will not be ready for at least 2 years, according to the maintenance and refurbishment schedule. So it will be a considerable amount of time before they go back to Edion Arena. As for Drilla and Shingo, man, this match, they went at each other hard. Like, Drilla knew that this was his, like, heavyweight, like, introduction to a lot of it, and he didn't miss. I do think that 2025 are going to have these guys going back and forth, and I wouldn't be shocked if there's a New Japan Cup rematch. Yeah. I especially would not be shocked if there's a very consequential G1 rematch in which Shingo somehow gets his revenge there. This is one of those matches that you circle and you try and make sure you remember at the beginning of the year that they're going to pay this off at some point in 2025, and it's going to be a big moment. This is the kind of checkers that they play with their booking.
And it's also a tribute here to Shingo, not only in his work, which we all know is fantastic, but he's really achieved that bulletproof status, hasn't he? He can lose this match and we still love Shingo. And we still, if they put him in a title picture, we would still take him very seriously as a challenger. That's a great type of guy to have on your roster, someone who can do great matches, doesn't have to win constantly, and can take a guy like Drilla Moloney, who we know is talented, and propel him toward the top into a potential drawing guy instead of mid-carder, a guy underneath David Finlay who's good. And we all know he's good, but maybe not title match consequential. Moloney's on the way to becoming another title match consequential dude.
Let me ask you this. In light of everything that happened in the show and Drilla winning now, is this a tweener group now, or is it a babyface group?
Well, I think for their first feud, they will be absolutely hardcore babyface group. I mean, and we're going to talk about what happens with House of Torture later. For that feud, they are going to be some of the biggest babyfaces in the whole company.
And they built all of these guys exceptionally strong coming out of this show tonight. Mm-hmm. And so there's almost a design factor where, like, even SANADA, like they have these irons in the fire that they kind of have to like knock out, but the War Dog direction is kind of pulled in a couple of different ways, and this might more fracture the War Dog rather than like the entire group goes in one direction of good or bad.
We'll see how that goes. They need bodies to compete with House of Torture there. Next one up though is a singles match, and it was Great Okan and Shota Umino, and boy did this have an interesting development here. So Great Okan, it was under 10 minutes. They did not spend a lot of time with it. The match itself was fine. It was more of a delivery system for the angle afterwards. Okan came out with scissors and electric hair clippers. He's been saying a while he wants to take Shota all the way back to being a young lion. Remember, they were young lions together. Shota Umino was a little bit behind Tomoaki Oka back then in that group, but similar generation. They competed with each other as young lions. Let's take them all the way back to that. There were some Shota chants early, but that Osaka crowd also booed Shota a little bit, and those boos kind of grew, not huge, but they grew a little bit as the match went on, and it worked for what they were going to do in the end. They started trading big moves, and Okan basically just got the eliminator and won. Shota hit Ignition. I think he hit kind of like a version of the Death Rider, but not his big finish. And afterwards, He grabbed the clippers and went to shave Shota Umino's head. Umino blocked him from doing so. He just reached up and blocked his arm. But then he took the clippers out of Okan's hand and shaved his own head, or at least a few stripes of it there. I'd imagine he's going to finish the rest of the job in the back. He also looked completely deranged while he was doing so. So my question to you, Jeremy, has Shota Umino lost his damn mind? Is that what we're seeing? An unhinged, unchecked, mentally cracked Shota Umino?
Yeah, he lost his groove. He hasn't lost his mind. He's lost his mojo. He's lost his confidence. He's lost everything but his mind. His mind is clear. He's aware that he's lost it all, and there's nothing left in this version of Shota that's worth a damn. This was super interesting. We talked for weeks about this match. Mm-hmm. We talked for weeks about who's going to win this match. And I was on it. That is like, I think Shota's going down, down, down. And then last week at the goddamn preview, I got rattled after watching those Road to shows, and I thought, yeah, you know,
well, and let's
real hard on the teardown. I feel like they can't go too much farther.
And let's explain that a little bit. He being Umino. Mm-hmm. Umino was beaten down by Great-O-Khan every night, embarrassed by Great-O-Khan every single night, bullied by Great-O-Khan every single night. The toy belts that the kids made for him, he ripped them up. He cut off a chunk of Shota's hair. Great-O-Khan would leave him laying even after winning. You know, not a thing where he's getting heat back. Laying out Umino after Great-O-Khan wins the match. It was setting up so much for Umino to rise up against the bully that it kind of fooled us all. We thought that's where it was going. He's gonna beat Great-O-Khan and start a rehab thing here, but instead they have decided to indeed tear him all the way down. Brad mentions it here. If he comes out for the New Japan Cup with a shaved head and black tights, that would be very interesting. Yeah. And it would be. And he says, Brad says, he's invested in the story of rebuilding him from the ground up.
This is the perfect time to do it. You've got Yuya back. You've got Ryohei Oiwa just coming in looking like $1 million. You've got Yota Tsuji with the upgrade in his look today, and then you have Shota Umino, who has completely and utterly regressed back to square one.
And has a feeling he's going to be launched out of a rocket eventually with whatever direction he wants to go in. It's going to happen.
All right. By the summertime, and that hair starts growing back out again, I think we're going to have a very confident Shota Umino.
Up next was SANADA and Taichi. This is the clash between the two former tag team partners with the Just Five Guys. And this, though, I felt like this match played like the preview matches leading up to it. I don't think they really ratcheted anything up here. Taiji Ishimori was in SANADA's corner and Taka Michinoku was in Taichi's, and they were involved as much. It almost felt like a tag team match a little bit. Only 8 minutes and 35 seconds, but it was what we've seen all the way through. A lot of referee distractions and low blows, and SANADA doing a thing where he grabs the ref's shirt so he doesn't see the kicks and all that kind of stuff. The low blow kicks, they tried to do the thing where he tried to get where SANADA tried to get Taichi disqualified for low blows, didn't work. But really, this is all about the setup for the post-match. Eventually, they did get the low blow, and SANADA hit deadfall to win. Afterwards, they continued to beat down Taichi. They continued to beat down Takamichi Noku, so you got Ishimori out there. And then suddenly, Yuya Uemura ran in and made the save. And that crowd in Osaka was very happy to see him. He looked healthy. Of course, his arm seems to have healed up nicely. But really, this was a house show match, but it was to get us Yuya Uemura back. And now SANADA has to deal with a rejuvenated and very upset Uemura. So nice surprise. That was a nice surprise. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad he's going to be part of the landscape again. As
annoyed as I was that I was almost right about Shota and I wavered, I never wavered on this. Yeah. We talked about Yuya coming back as the reason why this match was happening now, because Yuya wouldn't have been ready for Wrestle Kingdom, and they wanted him for the post-match. And now we can get to Yuya and SANADA, and then potentially Yuya and David Finlay, which was always the goal that they wanted to get to. So I'm really excited for this booking. Although, what was up with SANADA's jacket? Like that was a whole new look for him.
Oh boy, yeah. What was he was covered in the jacket was covered in speakers?
Yes, they were cartoonishly drawn and articulated speakers that were all jutting out of his shoulders on his jacket. And it was, I thought, to drown out Taichi's music, kind of like a symbolic thing. Like I'm drowning you out, you're just noise. But nobody really clarified on the English side broadcasting, and so I just thought it was a weird flex on his part.
And don't forget, he walked out also with an acoustic guitar, which made zero sense. And
an acoustic guitar and speakers is a choice.
Is a choice, and apparently he plays the guitar about as well as Jeff Jarrett because he never even pretended like he could actually play the thing. SANADA wrestles a hell of a lot better than Jeff Jarrett does, and but this is, yeah, it was a choice, wasn't it? An acoustic guitar, a whole set of speakers. He swung the guitar a couple of times, but I don't know. In wrestling these days, it's almost like a birthday cake. You expected to see this thing smashed by the end of the night, don't you?
Yeah, they didn't smash the guitar.
I'm sure it's coming.
We'll get a payoff. I'm sure Yuya Uemura will end up using that guitar over SANADA at some point.
No, I guess they have pawn shops in Japan too. You can go and buy a guitar cheap and smash it all you want.
There was no amp to the acoustic guitar because sometimes you can do that, right? You can put an amp on.
Yeah, but I don't know if any of those speaker thingies were amplifiers. I'm not enough of an audio.
I'm just trying to do you got a cord from your jacket, buddy, and then you just you amp the guitar whenever Taichi's music plays?
I don't know. Jarrett's been carrying around a guitar for 30 years for no reason, I guess.
I mean, this week has been an epic week for hating on other music talents in sports presentation. So I just figured he was just following the trend.
He's always up on what the kids are into these days. So, or the boomers in this case.
Oh, no. SANADA is not like us.
No, he's not. Thank goodness. Oh, man. What a week, huh? All right. Next up, the junior heavyweight tag team titles were on the line. We had Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles against Roppongi Revice is the name of the team. It's Yo and Rocky Romero. 11 minutes, 43 seconds. This is basically a high-speed match. This one was kind of launched out of a cannon, and they stayed at a sprint pace throughout. And that led to a big change of pace from the earlier matches. Not that the other guys were working slower than usual, but this one really looked different than everything that had come before. It was pretty good, but I don't think anybody thought that Yo and Rocky were winning this match. And that kind of held things down a little bit. Fujita beat Rocky with Abandoned Hope, his big finisher there. So I think it's good that Fujita is getting a lot of these pinfalls. They're really putting the emphasis on him. And Robbie's Eagles is still terrific, but they seem to be focusing more on Fujita, which does make sense for them for what they have long-term plans for. After that match, they vanquished Rocky and Yo. Ishimori came back out and said he wanted to challenge for the tag team titles. And instead of teaming with fellow War Dog Clark Connors, he said Robbie X would be his partner right there. So it looks like Clark is going to be holding down the singles end for now, not joining up with Ishimori. It'll be Robbie X and Ishimori challenging for the junior tag titles next. Yes, it is. Yeah. Fine.
That was fine. The match was fine. Personally, Yo has not done much for me as the in-ring personality for about 9 to 6 months now. Somewhere around that time, it's just kind of he's gotten a little into his character in a way that doesn't feel like it's benefiting the New Japan product, and that's fine. It's whatever. But it's not resonating with me. I enjoyed the subtle digs at Rocky Romero being the busiest man in pro wrestling, but unable to make time for these Road 2 shows that everyone else is grinding on.
Is that what Walker and Connor were talking about?
Connors more than Walker Stewart. Connors was, oh, it's kind of funny, hey, yeah. Robbie Eagles is tremendous. He looks like he's in the best shape of his life right now. Kosei Fujita is him every time I see him. And if you did not watch our show last week or watch the match with him and El Desperado, it was one of the top 5 matches of the year so far. So please go ahead and make time to go check that match out because Kosei Fujita is having a tremendous 2025 so far.
All right, so we will be keeping an eye on when Ishimori and Robbie X challenge them. So after that, we had the Never Openweight title match, and this was Konosuke Takeshita defending the title against Oleg Boltin. It went 11 minutes, 33 seconds. This was fantastic. The story was Boltin, early in the match, charged Takeshita outside the ring when they were fighting on the floor, and Takeshita dodged. Boltin smashed into the ring post and hurt his shoulder. This was the working story. Bolton's fine. Boltin would then hit big moves, kind of power through it, but Takeshita could always go back to the shoulder and try to neutralize Boltin with moves that attack the shoulder. Takeshita hit a superplex with Boltin that looked fantastic. Boltin got Takeshita, who's a big guy, up for those gut wrenches, and he did that. Got a couple of those, and then did the overhead throw. Takeshita was outstanding in this match at putting over Bolton's power. Like, he really sold it well. He went up for everything perfectly. The other thing I wanted to mention here is we know Takeshita is a great worker. We know this, and we know that he can deal with all these different sizes of guys and styles because of his time in DDT when he had to kind of be ready for anything. Boltin, though, his facial expressions and his selling have progressed miles in the last year. His just emoting, he is no longer kind of this stoic guy out there. I mean, he had passion and emotion, and you could see it in his face. When he sold, he put over exactly what hurt and how. It's just night and day from a year ago. And this was terrific. He hit a kamikaze for 2 at the 10-minute mark that had some people thinking for a second there that he might win this thing. Of course, that was a kick out. Takeshita got him in a guillotine, and Boltin almost passed out, but he powered out of it a couple of times again because he's just so damn strong. But he was weakened enough after that for Takeshita to hit Raging Fire and win it.
No, you missed the guillotine part. What he raised, the referee raised it twice, and Oleg's arm dropped, and then he raised it a third time, and Takeshita caught the arm and said, "No, we're not ending it that way."
But he did power out of it a couple of times in there too. And
but then that final Raging Fire, he had nothing left. Takeshita had taken it all out of him.
But yeah, go out of your way to check this one because, as Brad says, this is a big boy throwing big bombs. And this is just an outstanding match. Certainly the best of Bolton's career thus far. But I don't think it's going to stay that way for long because I think that this guy is just coming along by leaps and bounds.
I was absolutely blown away by this. The only way that I could describe this, Steven, is if, and this is going to be a little nerdy when I say this, is like this dude, without our knowledge, traveled 5 years and wrestled for 5 years sometime in the last month and then came back and wrestled this match. I don't know what happened, but he is not the same wrestler he was a month ago. Maybe the Barnett stuff, I don't know. Like, I can't figure it out, but I looked at this guy and I was just like, who are you and what have you done with Boltin Oleg Boltin? He looked like a future world champion. He looked like a future IWGP champion.
And a lot of that's going to be Takeshita, isn't it? Because Takeshita's just that good at it. I'm very curious to see Boltin against other guys in the New Japan Cup, for instance, to see as a singles what he's able to do if this carries over or how much of this was Takeshita. But we saw real progression from this dude who's seems to have, if he gets this, he has all the tools, really. I mean, he talks, he still speaks humbly. He'll get some of the fire down with on the microphone, but in the ring, he's putting it together.
He is everything that I think New Japan hoped that he would be when they invested in him years ago. This is validation paid off, and he looks great. He's learning quickly, and the leaps and bounds are stratospheric. Miles, like you said, miles.
And the good news, whenever Konosuke Takeshita wins a Never Openweight title match, is we get another Never Openweight title match with Konosuke Takeshita in it. And if you can't tell, I just love this guy. I would say he is a New Japan wrestler.
He looked like a king when he came out, and he was wearing that red jacket with the fur lining. and he had the 2 titles, and he was standing on the ring corner, and I was like, "You are a king, my man!" Like,
and he did not heel. That's the other thing, is like he shook Oleg's hand after the match. He was gracious
deferential
to him.
to the effort that this man had against him in the ring.
And then Ryohei Oiwa came out. And that was the good news for me, is that now we're going to see Oiwa versus Takeshita for the Never Openweight title down the line. That's the next challenger. Ryohei Oiwa and Takeshita should put together something pretty damn good. So just the hits keep coming.
Just keep the anniversary going, right? Like the anniversary show already looks fantastic.
Shaping up, isn't it? Shaping up. So yeah, there we go. And so again, at this point, I'm really enjoying this show, and some of the best stuff is still to come. The next one was the IWGP World Tag Team Heavyweight title match, and this was the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, taking on Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito. Now, we've already established that Naito can't do what he used to do, but Hiromu's still great. Mm-hmm. And Matt and Nick know how to work some of these things. And here's something that I really liked. And you know that I have my issues with the Bucks. With the way they work and the way they have not evolved much in the last 10 years, they basically do the same stuff over and over again. But I loved the outfit they had. And I don't know if you caught it, but their gear tonight was a tribute to the iconic Glico sign, which is a side of a building-sized advertisement off of the Dotonbori. The Dotonbori is the tourist kind of food and nightlife section of Osaka. And this is where you go to get your late night snacks. They have some of the best melon pan you're ever going to have. They have that's where you get the takoyaki and the crab and all this stuff. It's delicious. Very lively section, little pedestrian street.
Oh, the Glico?
The Glico guy is there right over the river. And they were dressed like the true Glico guy. They hit the Glico guy's pose. And Glico it's a logo for a company that makes a lot of things, but you get snacks and stuff like that with the Glico man on it. And they hit that pose before they hit the one where they do the muscles to show you they don't have any biceps, and then before they head to the ring. And so they did that, and I did appreciate that because they kind of worked an Osaka landmark into their gear tonight. And once the match started, it was okay. A lot of tenderos because Naito can do them. A lot of super kicks because that's about all Huey and Dewey do. There were some cutesy spots like getting the Bucks to give each other Tijeras. Again, they have that. Is that move the Meltzer driver where the one does the front flip, misses the guy that's doing the spike pile driver?
Yeah, so like it hits? Like the momentum of them doing the spin, if they come at the guy, it drops the guy down.
Yeah, they never hit it. They never actually get the timing right on it. It always looks like crap. And it did here too, except they did a thing where Hiromu reversed the spike pile driver. So this is how they shook it up instead of doing what they usually do. They had Hiromu switch the spike pile driver. So when the Bucks blew the move, they were blowing it on their own guy instead of on the other guy. So instead of that they just shook up the botch instead of they still did the botch. They always botch it, but they shook it up in a different way, botched it differently. And so afterwards, Naito managed to kind of hit a Destino. It wasn't an iconic Destino by any stretch, but he did what that was about as good as it's going to get these days. And took the titles back. So, I mean, at least that's over with. And the titles are with a New Japan tag team again. And Hiromu and Naito. This is going to be a situation, Jeremy. We've talked about it. Naito is going to carry the team. Naito can do... No. Hiromu's going to carry the team. Naito can do about a 15-minute match and work 5 minutes of it.
Right. And
do his stuff and get out. And that's probably the right use for him as we go through 2025.
With the exception of maybe the Ishii match that they had a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, where, Ishii and Naito and Hiromu kind of got into it with each other, and there was that kind of end of match stuff. I can't think of a time where, and like, I'm taking a lot into account here, Naito looked this good. I think that the Bucks, and I know that you don't agree with me on this.
I don't know how good he looked.
Are very skilled at making their opponents look good when they are washed, or they are not as good as they think that they are. So Naito, as we have discussed on this show, is no longer the Naito that we know, love, and have respected and revered. He is still Naito, but he is not athletically what he is able to do. I watched this match, and I thought the Bucks got the best match they could get out of him, while respecting, his role within New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's not saying that it was a great match.
Yeah, he just can't do it anymore, can he, with those? Yeah.
But those guys went out there, and they did everything in their power to make sure that Naito tried to look. You got the glimmers of Naito that you've seen in the past. Like, they've worked with him enough in the past. They knew his moves. They knew how to pull off the move. Those moves looked a little bit better, even if they didn't look great, than they usually did. You got the Tendinero, you got the assisted Destinos, you got a couple of these other moves. But for the most part, the Bucks wrestled around Naito to, as respect and deference to him, and then they put the belts on him in a title match that I don't think that there's anybody on the New Japan roster that could have been able to put Naito and Hiromu over with those tag titles the way that the Bucks having the clout kind of reestablishes, hey, these belts are important.
They did sell the Esperanza really well. That was one thing that Naito can still kind of hit that move, and they sold it very well. That looked pretty good. And again, the Destino, that's not really the Bucks' fault that doesn't look good anymore. The Naito just has a hard time getting himself over like that. And it does take the opponent to help get him over, but you can only do so much.
Only so much.
Yeah, if he's a sandbag, that's a challenge. So for anybody.
We were getting Hanma and Naito reps, and now we have Nick and Matt Jackson doing.
Yeah, no, that's fair point. That's a fair point.
The opposite of it was like, this was as good as it was gonna be, and for me, it met a threshold I was totally okay with.
Well, then things picked up significantly because after this, we had the IWGP Global Heavyweight title match, and this was Yota, Tsuji, and Gabe Kidd. And as expected, they beat the holy hell out of one another. Gabe and Tsuji basically both worked as badass baby faces in this match, really. It was the never back down, straight ahead type of Tamashi match all the way. And in the middle of all this, there was a chop exchange, and Tsuji landed an overhand chop.
Oh my God.
That echoed through that entire building.
Gunshot.
And Gabe was smart enough to stop and sell the living hell out of it. And just get everything he could out of it, because this thing
crumpled to his knees and died.
Oh, woo! Every once in a while, you get it just right. There was every once in a while you get it just right, and they did right there. And Gabe handled it well.
The perfect chop at the perfect moment.
Gabe used the Cobra Twist again. That's the old Inoki version of the abdominal stretch that was over big time. I mean, again, it seems funny now, but at one point there were. People got submissions out of abdominal stretches in wrestling as moves evolve from being finishers to being transition moves to being just another move in the match. That's decades and decades of history of that. At one point, the Cobra Twist was a big move for Inoki, so that's a nod to the founder from Gabe Kidd. He also reversed a Spanish Fly, which looked pretty darn cool. And once this match got to big move time, the crowd loved it. And the people were all over this match. And at one point, Tsuji charged in for a Gene Blast, and Gabe Kidd managed to turn it into a very quick pile driver. That was a wow moment. And Kidd eventually lined him up for the knees, where he pulls the wrap down and exposes that devil tattoo. But when he charged in, he ran into the full brunt of a Gene Blast. The spear took him out, but Tsuji was too beaten down to cover, and Red Shoes started the count, and Tsuji almost made it to his feet, but he ended up collapsing. It was a double knockout finish right there. It was a draw. We were talking about this, Jeremy, that I thought it was a surprise that either one of these guys was going to lose. I didn't think either one of them was going to lose, or should. I mean, I don't think either one of them should have lost after Wrestle Kingdom or Wrestle Dynasty. Well, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
They managed to just beat the hell out of each other until it was a draw. New Japan's done a couple of these double knockouts lately, haven't they? It's now a weapon they're using a little more often to avoid doing pinfalls for anybody. But in the end there, of course, they were ready to fight some more. But while they were starting to headbutt each other and go at it a little bit, House of Torture ran in, which was an interesting choice in the moment when it happened. I just thought, HOT, what are they doing? And I thought, is Narita going to go after? But anyway, they had something in mind. Narita has a new push-up bar now. It looks a lot better than the old one. It's got his logo on it. So I'm sure you'll be able to get that in the NJPW store, maybe in foam.
You can.
But anyway, House of Torture charged in, beat down Yota Tsuji. Okay, then the lights went out, and Evil's music hit, and Evil came out, teased like he was wasn't going to join in, and he had a blank black T-shirt on. So as we know, what's on the shirt matters in New Japan. They teased us though. In the end, he of course ended up giving everything as Evil to Yota Tsuji, and then they started to help up Gabe Kidd, but I kind of understood what was happening here.
Oh yeah,
they ended up holding Gabe Kidd for Evil to smash him in the head. And then he got on the microphone, and this was a topic of some debate. But what we have figured out since the show, what Evil said was that House of Torture is the only true Bullet Club affiliated group. And it's not that they left Bullet Club. He did not pull House of Torture out of Bullet Club. He is saying they're the only true Bullet Club, and the War Dogs are out. That was what he said. The War Dogs are no longer in Bullet Club, according to Evil. According to Evil. I mean, we don't know if he has the power to unilaterally decide that. And he said, you can tell Finlay too. Essentially, House of Torture turned the War Dogs babyface in this angle because Clark Connors tried to help, got knocked back. He was, like we mentioned, he was doing commentary with Walker Stewart. Clark Connors tried to help out, beaten down. Gabe Kidd's laid out. Gabe Kidd's basically been a babyface since Wrestle Dynasty and even a little bit before anyway. They made the conscious choice to put the lion mark on his trunks. They've been telling the fans to cheer for Gabe in both subtle and not subtle ways. This is just the trigger being pulled here. Who knows what's going to work out with David Finlay when and if he returns to New Japan. But for right now, Jeremy, if we're going to be doing a House of Torture War Dogs feud, War Dogs are going to be the biggest baby faces in New Japan.
Yeah. You see Gabe Kidd coming out there with a baseball bat, ready to beat the shit out of the House of Torture. Yeah, you're going to be rooting for Gabe Kidd. This is really interesting booking. I think you and I both were pretty laughable at the idea that Evil was done with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and so he came back. He came back at the right time and the right place, and I am happy to see him because I actually do really like Evil. Gabe Kidd is going to be the most popular non-world champion in New Japan history, I feel like. I don't know if he ever wins the world title in the IWGP, but he is just unstoppable at this point. He exudes like this energy, both when Yota and him came out, right? You saw the Gabe Kidd energy. That crowd erupted.
Yeah.
He came out, he ran through the audience, huge babyface energy that you said. He got into the ring, and then Yota Tsuji came out, and came out to a darkened stage only to reveal that he had gotten rid of his long pants and he had switched to trunks, which I think is a massive improvement, but it was a callback to when they were feuding as Young Lions, and I get that, and it might not be permanent, but man, this look for Yota just felt right to me, and these guys and Hirooki Goto all got a bigger reaction than the world champion today.
And what we have seen now from Kidd is that there is a real buzz in the crowd at the mere mention of him. And what I mean by that is in the arena, they will put the match card up on the video screen. So here's what's next. And it's the match up there with the still photos of each guy kind of glaring at each other. Mm-hmm. Anytime Gabe Kidd comes up on that, which means signaling Gabe Kidd's match is next, it gets that ooh from the crowd out there in a way that the other matches don't.
Current and the crowd changes. Yeah.
Yeah. That there's this little moment of anticipation. It's like, ooh, Gabe's up next. And that is a little piece of magic that not everybody gets. And Naito kind of has that. And I mentioned that when I was in Tokyo, I was amazed at just how much more popular Naito was than anybody else. When I say biggest babyface in the company, he probably still won't be ahead of Tetsuya Naito in that respect or in merchandise. But in terms of pure energy from the fans, I think Gabe is on a level now that not very many people get to in Japan, where the fans are just itching to see what happens next. And whatever he does is an event.
Ironically, he's very Kenny Omega like that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, we did see that with Kenny for a while, for sure.
Like
and
that.
Benkin mentions, isn't that an Oni tattoo? Yeah, see, you guys would probably know more about that tattoo than I would, to be fair. It looks like a red, kind of a devilish type of thing, but I guess you would probably know more about what that is than I do. And then Brad mentions that Stardom has a time limit draw. NJPW has the double knockout count out thing. So, yeah. And then Benkin says, tell Finlay to get back here. Yeah, I'm hoping he does too. And War Hero is his fantasy booking. He says the Good Brothers return to help Evil, and so will Juice. Oh Lord, yeah, they're free now, I guess, right? And then Brad mentions the story of the match was incredible. They did the first part of the match like a Young Lion match. Then it hit the 10 minutes, which is the Young Lion limit, and it became a good observation JPW match. There you have it. So it's an intriguing one with these two. I'm curious to see if they do it again, or if
do it again.
Well, but I mean, is immediately, or are they going to branch off into this House of Torture feud?
2025, right, man. They'll pay all this off in 2025. I feel like we're not going to get this right away. Maybe they'll tease it as a matchup that could happen in New Japan Cup and then doesn't happen. But I think that when these two guys meet up again, this might be the Shota Gabe Kid feud of 2025. Is Gabe kidding Yota Tsuji instead?
Could be. I wouldn't mind seeing at some point some sort of odd coupling team with them, Kid and Tsuji against Evil and Narita, just to try to get revenge for the beatdown. So this could have chapters.
Like they clasped hands in almost respect after like the draw.
Yeah,
like there was very much like we're destined to do this forever kind of energy between the two. And then they headbutt each other, and then Gabe just punched Yota in the face and knocked him down again. And then the whole House of Torture thing happened. But the energy to this was like, oh, we're coming back to this. And if the draw didn't tell you that, I think everything else should have.
War Hero 99 thinks that Geto is going to switch sides. That could be.
Geto's a tricky bastard.
He is. He's a little slime ball, isn't he? So
Evil. Look at you. Look at your House of Torture.
Yeah, there they are. They all are. And so we got a returning Dick Togo. We got Evil back. And of course, Yujiro, Sho, Kanemaru, and
Kanemaru.
Yeah.
Blondie Kanemaru.
Modest King said he didn't mind the draw. I heard some people say crowd. It did kill the crowd a little bit. But I think the angle afterwards got him back a little bit, and then certainly the main event.
It was the perfect break angle between the end of the match and the beginning of the next match. Mm-hmm. Like it was a complete segment in and of its own that differentiated the end of the last match and the beginning of the next one. And by the time it was over, everyone had gotten their breather back and they were ready for it.
And it also was enough of a new direction for the people involved in the match. The idea that House of Torture is going to feud with the War Dogs now, that it wiped the taste of that draw right out of their mouth. Mm-hmm. Their minds were on, it's going to be.
I want to see House of Torture get their asses kicked. Let's do that.
Yeah, and I want to see the War Dogs do it. And then what's Finlay's role in this? Your mind starts spinning. It's like what, and you forget about the fact that they didn't really do a finish in that. And it's funny, they used to do in Japan. There was a plague in the 80s especially, and somewhat in the 70s, but especially the 80s, of double countouts to protect everyone. And I can't tell you folks the sheer volume of double countouts in Japanese pro wrestling in the 80s. And these matches, and I'll give you an example real quick here. We've got some time. I can do this. Rick Martel and Ric Flair. Rick Martel was the AWA champion. Ric Flair was the NWA champion. They wrestled each other in All Japan. And this happened in New Japan as well, but it's particularly obvious here. The crowd almost knew that there's no way we're getting a finish in this match. There's the two world champions. Neither one's going to beat the other. They would fight on the outside of the ring, and you would hear the groan in the crowd. And they would play off of that by getting to about 15 or 16, and then one would slide in the ring. the act of sliding into the ring would get a huge pop. Hey, it's not a double count out. All right, and then they would wrestle a little while longer and they would spill to the outside and you would hear the and then one would get back in. Yay! And then eventually they did do a double count out. And there's and that was just one example. New Japan did it constantly too. The double count out thing, neither guy has to lose and all that. And then they just stopped cold turkey, like both companies, basically at around the same time. And then we had years upon years of none of that. Occasionally a time limit draw, but very rarely, no more double countouts. Everything had a finish. Somebody beat somebody.
We get a lot of strong countouts.
Yeah,
a few of those.
Yeah, and then only in the last handful of years have they gone back to these kind of non-finishes like this. They went a long time resisting the urge to protect both guys, but it's starting to fall off a little bit now. So we'll see. And then War Hero says too, it also makes sense because they both hold titles, and they can the strong champion isn't as protected as usual, but they're protecting Gabe Kidd, and I think that's probably important there.
Steven, I don't mean to make you laugh, but this is actually a real thing. I have been told by my wife that there is going to be a fire alarm in my building, a routine fire alarm, in about 30 minutes. So I'm giving you that information and sharing with the rest of the world that I am in fact married and happily married.
No, that's fine. And Modest King has some points. So if this happens, then we'll be ready for it. We'll all.
We have one more match to talk about and comment from the Peanut Gallery. I think. Yeah.
But Modest King mentions here the purpose is to make Gabe the baby fully. Yeah, I'm sure they'll run it back, maybe at the Dome. Yeah, maybe a G1. There's a lot of ways they could do it. And he says they keep talking about Finlay, which kind of tells me he hasn't gone yet, which is a good thing. Yeah, I agree. We'll see about that. But they're protected even if he's not.
Finlay finally winning his cup this year.
Yeah, and Modest King also says you do a non-finish sparingly, it works, not every month. And yes. That's the key here. When they were doing it in the 80s, they were constant to the point that the crowd literally expected a non-finish. And that's not where we are.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. And that's not where we are right now. They are kind of doing it strategically, and there is value in that. Yeah, Venkin mentions just don't overdo it. Yeah, that's all we ask. That's all we ask. That's right.
You do every finish until it doesn't work anymore. And a double count out on a exceptionally big show, when you are getting the match you're getting afterwards, I don't think anyone walked away thinking they were robbed of anything special.
All right. So what happened next was the IWGP World Heavyweight title match. We had Hirooki Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. Of course, Goto was over right from the beginning, and Yoshihashi was with him. All of TMDK was with Zack. And there was definitely a buzz in the crowd for this one. The entrance of Goto had real undercurrents. Just the crowd was ready for this. The crowd was into this from the start in a way that you don't always get in even world title matches. And there was grappling early in this one. A lot of that, which of course Zack does better than anybody else. And only 6 minutes in, though, Goto hit an Ushigoroshi, kind of to signal that we might kick things up a gear or two right here. And by the 10-minute mark of this match, which went just barely over 20 minutes and 7 seconds, by the 10-minute mark, they were doing big moves. Corner-assisted GTR and a Zack driver had all happened by around the 10-minute mark. Then they started teasing the whole idea of the close but not quite, right? The story of Goto's career, even when he painted himself white and had the markings all over his body against Okada, when it looked like this was all or nothing for him, and he died tragically at the end. They kept teasing it, of course, which is a smart thing to do. Zack started with the submissions, and of course Zack does all these great submissions and ties up one limb and then 2 limbs and then 3 limbs. The crowd was all over it. And when Goto got the rope break, they popped huge. But Goto had taken some big moves and those submissions, and he looked like he was in big trouble at the 15-minute mark. One of those things where they were setting up an atmosphere where Goto would hit a big move or so, but Zack would hit the Zack driver and beat him. You know what I mean? That whole thing where you claw your way back up and you get a couple of moves in, but then you're struck down at the end and you lose. And that's what they were setting us up for. And Zack had a sleeper That further weakened Goto, but he powered out and hit a lariat. The crowd was nuts for everything Goto did in this match.
Mm-hmm.
He hit a GTW for 2. Then there was a series of headbutts. And then things began to turn when he hit the Shotenkai, my favorite move in pro wrestling. I love the Shotenkai. The crowd was absolutely wild for that. That blew him up. Then a whole battle of roll-ups and clotheslines broke out. And the key with Zack and those roll-ups is he wins so many matches with those bizarre roll-ups and bridges and various tie-ups in small packages that you have to take every single one of them seriously as a potential finish. And whenever Goto would just barely kick out in time, that just kept building and building and building, and the crowd was just willing him on. At the 20-minute mark, he hit a GTR. And this was genius. Whoever wanted to, I don't know whether it was Zack, Goto, both of them, whoever. He hits the GTR, crowd goes crazy. But then Goto says, no, I want to do a second one. And the crowd was almost like, no, just cover him. He's going to counter you. Don't let it out, don't fall for, like the hubris, right? It's like, no, I need to hit one more of these and it'll all be over. And then he get bit. But he hit it. Mm-hmm. And when he hit it, there was this gasp in the crowd, like, oh my God, he's not going to kick out of 2 of these. He covers Zack Sabre Jr. The whole building counts with him. 1, 2. And this is what I'm talking about, the production. The camera shot was the handheld camera at ringside. It's shooting under the bottom rope across the ring. It frames Zack, Goto, Yoshihashi, his best friend, the guy that's ride or die with him in the background. He's got his knee up on the apron counting along. It hits 3. You see hundreds of people in the crowd behind leap to their feet with their arms in the air. They absolutely blow the roof off of Edion when Red Shoe's hand hit the mat for the 3rd time. A new World Heavyweight Champion after 9 attempts and 17 years. Goto was in tears. Half the crowd was in tears.
I was in tears.
Toru Yano choked up in commentary on the Japanese side. I understand that Walker was a little verklempt over on the English side. Mm-hmm. Everyone sold it beautifully. What a fantastic moment. And
this was almost like the comp that I would give it. And I don't know how many people were actually around to watch it when it happened, but this is Eddie Guerrero winning in the Cow Palace. It was just like that San Francisco crowd went nuts when he beat Brock Lesnar. Nobody thought he was going to do it, but they wanted him to do it. And the celebration, the victory, the crowd, one night, it was perfect. It was perfect. The psychology of the match, man, like
they played it like a fiddle. They knew exactly what that crowd was going to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. And they gave every single bit of it that this was going to be that one more time Goto was going to be the bridesmaid and not the bride on this. And they played it like a fiddle.
Than that.
Yeah.
I mean, the urgency in which very early on Zack Sabre Jr. realized that his method of trying to break this guy down wasn't going to work. And he approached it differently. And when he started doing his like traditional submission maneuvers, like the Clarky Cat, trying to get him locked up, it didn't feel like he had control. It felt like he was desperate to end this guy. Like he couldn't quite put him away. And it was getting more and more frustrated throughout the match. And you notice these Zack Sabre Jr. matches, they go longer than 20 minutes. They go 28, right. They go 30, they go 33 minutes. This match was wrestled with a frequency of desperation of, I've got to get this guy. I got to put this guy down. Like he is a threat to my title. And he was wrestling, and you could see every time he tried to put him away and he couldn't put him away, like the frustration was getting to him a little bit more. And then around that 16, 17-minute mark, when Goto broke out of the last of those submissions and he came in and he gave the lariat from hell to Zack Sabre Jr., everybody knew Zack was in trouble. And there was still that dynamic of Zack can still squeak one out. Like there is still a chance that this guy can run away with it at the very end. And that's like what you were saying with like that fear from the crowd. But no, this was a brilliantly laid out main event, and it made Goto.
And it was the thing where Modest King mentions, I was exhausted, but I had a good feeling about this until Zack was tying Goto into a pretzel. Then it got scary for Goto. He wanted Goto to win. And it was something that I mentioned the seeds of doubt, him getting close, setting up the idea of him hitting a couple of moves, but ending up in a Zack driver and dying. The other part that for me, Jeremy, it started to go through my head when Zack started tying him up was, are they going to have Red Shoes call it? The story being Goto would never quit and Red Shoes has to stop it. That type of thing. They could do that to try to protect Goto a little bit if they want to break everybody's hearts. That's what I mean by playing our emotions like that. Absolutely. They knew that we would be worried about things like that. So they set up those situations. And then Modest King says, such an emotional moment. You can see Yoshi, the crowd explodes behind. And Brad mentions this. Is why I tell that people NJPW has the best production in wrestling. No other company compares. I don't care about LED boards or AI. This is perfection. The way this was framed was absolutely genius.
Speaking of Brad, he posted something on social media, and he listed all of Goto's accomplishments. And I'll start with them. He is a winner of the Young Lion Cup. He is a 5-time World Tag League champion. He is a 3-time New Japan Cup champion. He is a G1 winner. He has won the Strong Tag title. He has won the Never Openweight 6-man title. He's won the Never Openweight title. He's won the IWGP Heavyweight Tag title. He's won the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag title. He's won the IWGP Intercontinental title. And he has finally won the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. This dude is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Jeremy, I found out also today that everyone now we can say this: everyone who has won the G1 has won the IWGP title.
Is now an IWGP champion.
He was the last one left.
He was the last guy.
The last one to win a G1.
Flowers. It's Goto time. Let's Goto.
Yeah, and Modest King says, I think this is one of Zack's best performances. No BS. Didn't go forever with grappling in comparison to the Wrestle Kingdom match. That was a disaster. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit about that match being a disaster. I thought it had some.
You was there live. You got homer for that match, Modest.
Yeah, but that was. But yeah, it was a good performance by him for sure. And then War Hero Jey Uso will change his mind and challenge Goto. I'm not sure. I like who had the line on WWE TV or something like that. Goto knows the counter for all 4 of Jay's moves, so he would have him beat.
This is a great show.
Yeah. Well, so let's go over the post match because I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Goto was in tears. He dedicates the match to his father, of course, who passed away last year. We were kind of with him for all that. We knew he shared in post-match commentary that his father was very sick. Then he mentioned in commentary that his father had passed in post-match comments. So we were all with him on that. And his run in the New Japan Cup was a bit of a tribute to his father, but then to go all the way with it was very special. He brought his kids into the ring again. His son and daughter came into the ring with him and celebrated with him afterwards. They were there when they fired off all the streamers into the air and it rained down on the family. And I think that this is the best moment in wrestling, maybe since Cody completed the story. Remember how bad emotional it was.
All in or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that was up. I mean that was very good too. Yeah, it was a little
basically the blueprint. They did the same thing.
Very similar. Yeah. But I think the Goto thing had a little more weight to me in it. But all of those are good moments. There's no wrong answer with all those. But what I'm saying is it's up there with those. It's up there with those where somebody's finally
an all-timer moment on an all-timer show.
Yeah. And Modest King says Goto doesn't have to hold the title long, but honestly, it's not a thank you run in my mind. He got a groundswell for the title, and I think him passing the title to the next generation will be the right move. They had to drop the
title to somebody. He was the perfect guy.
Yeah. And it was a feel-good moment like crazy. And I think about this too. 5,000 plus in Edion Arena after seeing Uemura surprised them by coming back, after seeing a major turn where an entire faction seems to have been switched babyface. You get a tag team title win over special guests who have New Japan historical significance in the Young Bucks. You get a match like Gabe Kidd and Tsuji. Then you get a world title match. Those 5,000 people went home thinking
they got their money.
I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to go back.
Worth on this one.
And the people that didn't get tickets are going to be dying to go next time. So, I don't think Osaka Joe Hall's out of reach anymore. Like if they put together a nice loaded card for Dominion, who's to say 7,000 is impossible?
So a couple of news and notes after the show was over that it's important to this point. CMLL Fantastica Mania, those two shows that are televised, sold out, right? Goto, his opponent at the anniversary show, is going to be Tanahashi. They're going to sell that out. Like, this is momentum right now. Like, this is a strong direction that the company is going in. During the show, they did reinforce that Goto was, in fact, the leader of Chaos, which I was like, thank you for
Someone's finally
saying it. Like, flat out, we have definitive.
We have a leader
which
now.
Is all I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Absolutely. That's the one thing Chaos seriously needed. Now they can focus a little bit more. Yeah.
So
good stuff.
They recentered on that, and a show, no notes. I'm happy. I felt like I walked in there and I walked out feeling like I knew exactly what I was getting. I got more than what I was getting, and I wasn't disappointed with what I didn't get.
I think we are going to get at least 2 successful defenses for Goto, and here's why I say that. He mentioned Tanahashi at the anniversary show. I do not think Tanahashi is going to beat him for that title.
No.
After that, Yuji Nagata came out and challenged him and said that that your perseverance is impressive. I want to win the title after a long time away from it. And so Goto said, yes, of course, you're next after Tanahashi. I don't think there's any way in hell Yuji Nagata is beating Hirooki Goto for that title either. So we're going to get it. I think we're going to get at least a couple of months here before whatever happens.
I'm thinking we got the Sakura Genesis show for the winner of the New Japan Cup.
Yeah.
So that leaves the final for the New Japan Cup and the Windy City Riot as 2 places where the IWGP title could be defended. I am leaning towards the IWGP title not being defended at the Windy City just for reasons of they don't want to defend that title outside of the state or in the state right now.
And right now you can get away with having Gabe Kidd in a major match there and you're in big shape.
Right. Absolutely. So
yeah.
I feel like we have the New Japan Cup finals, which would be a fine place for Nagata and Goto to have a match.
Yeah,
and then we escalate into whoever is the winner of the cup, and we see if that is a viable person to take the title off, or if we're going to continue with the Goto Revolution.
It's a great setup, isn't it? Because you do it and they haven't announced this, but if you do that match at the Cup Finals, you have the Cup Final. Then you have the Goto, the world title match always goes last with New Japan, or almost always goes last. Goto's there, standing there, shaking Yuji Nagata's hand. Hey, good game, old man. And then the winner of the cup comes out. I mean, it's right there for you.
Right there.
It's right there for you. So what else we have here? War Hero mentions, I wonder where the Rogue Army is going to be in the BC drama. I saw that.
On New Zealand.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Chase Owens has kind of said he's coming back, so there's going to be something for him. Who knows? Maybe he'll choose sides in the Bullet Club war.
Fit to be tied.
Hey, War Hero 99. Wouldn't it be awesome if the Tribal Chief competed in the G1 this year? Right?
Do you remember the rumor a couple years ago that Punk might be in the G1 when he was floating that?
That's kind of where I was. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. It's like every once in a while that thing, I mean, not going to happen.
Like, let's chase some clout. Look, I'm going to do the G1, bro. You're not doing the G1. Shut the hell up.
Brad mentions Bushiroad has to be incredibly happy. Boy, they do. This has been a hell of a month for them. Both NJPW and Stardom are doing big live gate numbers. Fans are excited and happy for both products. Very true. That show with a World of Stardom title packed Korakuen Hall to the point that they actually opened up the balconies again. And that hasn't happened in a good while. Both companies feeling good right now. And Modest King just mentioned Goto's moving tickets for them. It's a feel-good story. Everyone loves it. New Japan has struggled lately, but they are developing new guys. Yeah, it's
Kikuchi Goto, the dream team.
And he said he could see them having a resurgence. And he also says Goto could have a decent run, depending on how they want to set up the next guy. Yeah, we have time. That's the beauty of this. When you have a hot company, you have more time.
And the beginning of February in 2025, New Japan's going to rule this year.
Okay, so while we have a little bit of time, we don't have a ton.
Got like 5 minutes.
Because Jeremy's going to have to.
You don't want the fire alarm going off on this show, my friend. You do not want.
No, not when I have my headphones on either. But we'll very quickly. Any of the new releases from either company, because we've had some from AEW, some from WWE. Anybody that you would like to see in New Japan, Jeremy?
No.
You know what?
The Baron Corbin from a few months back, I'm okay with that. I am interested in that one, but none of these guys. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit more in the know than a couple of the other people. Like, these people are WWE or bust that left for AEW. They didn't want to do jobs because they saw themselves as former AEW guys or better than AEW, and Tony couldn't get them to do jobs after he paid them money. That's on Tony. But I don't want those guys in a New Japan ring going into business for themselves, thinking that they are bigger than this promotion. If you were coming to New Japan, you were rebuilding your own brand, your own character, and your own profile. When it comes to the WWE people, sure, if Tegan Nox wants to go to Stardom, let's try it out. Sonya Deville, I don't think she could hang. In all honesty,
I agree with you there. Yeah,
there are a few other people in there.
Yeah. I think B. Priestley is going to end up back in Japan either way.
B. Priestley is probably that was the one I was trying. There's somebody in the back of my head that I couldn't think of. I think B. Priestley.
Isla Dawn might work if she wants to. If she has it in her to go to Japan,
I would see Isla Dawn in Rev Pro, and I could see B. Priestley trying AEW, but more likely being more.
Well, she was already there, and it didn't really.
And she might go back.
She changed her profile thing on social media to Top Gaijin again, which was her nickname when she was there the first time. So I think that's probably where
if it were me, I think she would do very well just to be in Japan for a little while.
Might be a good move for her. Brad mentions not a release, but get Josh Alexander over. I'd take that. That'd be a talented dude. Anyway, I was just kind of kicking that around because that always comes up. We're a New Japan podcast worth talking about, but I agree with you, Jeremy. I don't think we've seen the Good Brothers enough.
Look at that roster right now. What do you want to fuck with?
Yeah, it's kind of where I am right now. We're only some if it's a game changer, and I don't see any of those people as being game changers for New Japan. I think B might work. B might be really good for Marty Gold.
They should have learned their lesson with Dolph Ziggler and Matt Riddle last year. And if they didn't, and they bring these people in for the little WWE rub, whatever.
And War Hero 99 is asking, is New Japan creating alliances with other Japanese promotions? Well, they're part of that collective, that group that works with all the other promotions. The lobbying group. But beyond that, they are being more friendly to them. We are seeing New Japan wrestlers show up on other shows. DDT quite a bit. They've been popping up, and New Japan wrestlers have been free to do other things. We've seen Satoshi Kojima and Yuji Nagata working for All Japan and Noah, and there has been more of that. Yes, they even work with Noah on Ryohei Oiwa's excursion. So it is not the obstacle it used to be. Let's put it that way. And certainly Stardom's working with a lot of people. They're getting people in from Diana and Wave and guest shots and things on their shows. So it is more of the rule than the exception that promotions are working with other promotions now, which is nice. It's nice to see. And Sendai Girls, of course. Sendai Girls are all over Stardom shows lately. So, and Brad mentions Kenta worked the Noah show today, first time in 10 years at Korakuen for Noah. Is he a free agent now and going back there? Here's a little note about
the Kenta thing. Oh,
Kenta's always been a free agent. He's never actually been an exclusive New Japan talent. He's never had one of those exclusive deals with NJPW. It's just that's where he's been. And so, he's exploring other areas and going back home to Noah a little bit.
The story there is that I believe the New Year's show, Kino basically told him, "Hey, you should come back here and do this for this year." And so that was the working story, is that Kenta is going to be spending his 25th anniversary in the business, working in Noah.
Yeah, which is kind of, he started in the All Japan dojo before the split that created Noah. We don't have time to get into all that, but he's a Noah guy. He really came up through Noah. So that's where I first learned about him was through Noah. And he says, quickly, do you guys think Takeshita will be on every big New Japan show? I think
not every, but nearly all of them.
Darn near. He's the never openweight champion, so he's going to be on a lot of them. And he is signed to New Japan, DDT, and AEW. So it's not only at the mercy of Tony's schedule, but just about all of them, I'd say, the big ones.
I think we're going to find our answer if he's in the New Japan Cup or not.
What's that now?
We'll find out our answer when he's in the New Japan Cup or not. If he's not in the Cup, then Tony is going to be using him for dates, and we can't count on him for all of these big shows because there just might not be like a pay-per-view like Dynasty or All Out or Double or Nothing that he just can't make the show for whatever reason. But for the most part, I think he's going to be at most of them.
But I think things like Dontaku and Dominion and things.
But those are all predicated on Tony Khan saying he can go. And so I'm not saying everyone, but nearly everyone that he can.
Well, we'll have to see who's in the cup. We'll be finding that out soon. So what we're going to have here now, of course, we're not doing the show on Thursday. This is our show for this week. We will be back a week from Thursday, though. So that'll be the 20th on our regular time slot, regular day, regular time. And we will be previewing Fantastica Mania. We'll also be covering any other news that comes over. Now, we don't have any shows on NJPW World until the 27th. 16 days until our next show there. So it'll be a little while. There will be Fantastica Mania shows. They just will not be televised either on NJPW World or elsewhere. There'll be.
You want to hear some great news, though?
What's that?
March 6th is a Thursday. So we will be able to do the show immediately after the anniversary show airs.
Yeah, that's true too. We can do that. Looking forward to it because I think that that one has all kinds of potential to be really, really good. So Modest King and War Hero, thank you guys for the comments there. Of course, Brad, we're grateful you're here. Colin, Venkin, all you guys, we were really happy to have all of you with us today. Did I miss anybody?
We mainly rely on word of mouth for this show.
Yeah.
Social media is terrible for going viral in these days. You can hope it happens or whatever. So if you are listening to the show, if you like the show, if you're watching the show, please tell a friend. Say something on social media. Talk about us. We would really appreciate it. We live off of your feedback and your attention to us. So thank you.
Pay attention to all the shows on the Fight Game Media Network, both here on the YouTube and in the podcast feed. There's great content. No matter who you follow, you can find a show that is that will cover the kind of wrestling that you love and allow you to explore other things. There's no time, Jeremy, to watch all of it. There's so much good stuff right now. You can't watch all of it, but you can get the idea of what is happening from Fight Game Media podcasts and YouTube shows. So please do.
Yeah, I was fixing Dave's video yesterday and audio, and he was complaining that he didn't have enough time to watch CMLL. And I'm like, that's too bad. I don't know what to tell you.
All right. Well, thanks, War Hero. We appreciate the kind words from you and from everybody there. So we're going to wrap this one up. We'll be back a week from Thursday talking Fantastica Mania, which is always one of my favorite things. I'm a big Mexican wrestling fan and Lucha Libre, so I always have a great time with this one. Thanks for everyone who joined us here live on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who listens later on a podcast. Jeremy has to flee his apartment for his life soon, so we're going to let him do it.
Thank you, guys.
For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking Strong Style, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Peace out.